Hello and welcome to this video tutorial for Creo Parametric version 3. The content of this video is patterns. Patterns are a useful way for copying a feature that repeats. For example, if we interrogate this model, we see the first parent extrude as a rectangle and the second extrude as a cylinder. This is a child feature of the parent extrude. If we wanted to copy this cylindrical feature several times, there's a few ways we could do it. The first way would be to modify the second extrusion and physically make more of these circles. A second option would be to make several more individual extrusions, but this could lead to a very cluttered workflow. The third option, and the best in our case, is to use a pattern. Once we have the feature selected in our workflow, the pattern tool becomes active in the editing toolbar. We could click that to activate a pattern, or we could return to our workflow, right-click our second extrude, and click pattern. Once in the pattern dialog box, we're presented with several options. So the first option is how we want to create this pattern. We can do it by dimension, direction, and axis, which is good for rotational symmetry. We could fill the whole feature with a pattern, or we could enter data via a table. For this example, we'll click direction, and we're prompted to select our first item. So this is the first direction. We would choose our right datum plane. Once we've chosen our reference dimension, we can enter the number of times this pattern will repeat and the distance about which it will repeat. So in this case, we can enter 3, and we'll choose a distance of 75 mil. If we return to our feature, we have a black checkbox that's been added, and that will indicate the location of our pattern feature. We can then add a second direction. So we'll choose our front plane, once again prompted with more information, and we'll have this repeat every 50 mil. We now have a 2x3 pattern grid. We can also modify this on the fly by selecting these checkboxes, and that will remove a pattern from that location. But for this example, we'll keep these active. We don't need to supply any more information, and we can tick OK. And we can see that in total, our first part has been patterned 5 times. If we now interrogate our model tree, we notice that our second extrude has been changed to a pattern. Now this represents good design intent, because we could modify our extrusion by right-clicking Extrude To, Edit. We could then change the extrude height, for example, press OK, and that has followed through with our patterning. This is only one of several ways in which a pattern can be made. For the next example, we'll look at a pattern by an axis. For this new example, we've started with a circular plate, and we've made a subtractive extrusion. We can now pattern this by selecting our extrusion, clicking pattern in the dialog box or via right click, changing our option from by dimension to by axis. We're prompted with an axis about which our pattern will rotate. So we'll select our y-axis on our initial datum plane. We can then change the number of times this pattern will occur, say 10 times at an angular spacing of 36 degrees. We can press OK, and our hole has been patterned a total of 10 times. If we were to edit this pattern by right-clicking and edit, we can change manually the location where this pattern occurs by deselecting these radio boxes, tick OK, and our pattern has been updated. We could then change our initial feature by clicking Pattern, right-clicking Extrude To, Edit, and then Edit again. We could remove our initial feature, replace that with, say, a rectangle, click OK, and our pattern's been updated again. The last tool that we'll look at in this video is the mirror tool. It's similar to the pattern tool, but as the name implies, it can mirror a feature about a datum plane. We can demonstrate this by selecting our second extrusion, which is a slot that's been cut out of the plate. We can select our mirror tool from the Tools menu, and we're presented with a very simple dialog box that just asks for our mirror plane. This is why it's so important to center symmetric objects about your initial datum planes, because it makes the creation of high-level features like this quite simple. We can then select our right datum plane, press OK, and our Extrude To has been mirrored as per our model tree.